Alright guys, Lurqxx I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major drama going down at FaZe Clan. Many of the key individuals involved at FaZe over the last few years out of the door over these last 48 hours. Big drama emerging as to whether it's ever going to come back in the same way that it was before, but also what it means for a guy like ZooMaa. Looks like OpTic's trying to welcome him already to the Los Angeles Thieves, thinking that his time with FaZe and FaZe in general as an organisation is cooked after these recent developments. What does it mean for the Call of Duty team as well? Big speculation there. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Hope you all had a fantastic day yesterday. Let's get right into it, because ReeaL says the fact that Merc joined OpTic and single-handedly took down FaZe Clan is crazy. So just to keep in mind, for the real, let's say, warm-blooded, competitive Call of Duty fans out there, we're talking largely today about FaZe Clan and what's going on with that organisation behind the scenes, and obviously now it's spilled out into the public domain as well. Not necessarily FaZe Vegas, which is the Call of Duty team in the official Call of Duty League. Now, they obviously are connected in large part, although the connection isn't quite as close as you might expect. So the implications of this for what it means for the Call of Duty team are probably a little bit further down the line, but still relevant nonetheless. Now, look, did Mercules cause all this drama? No, this has been emerging for some time and developing for some time, really over the last few years of FaZe Clan, but it really has reached a head over the last couple of days here, over Christmas really, where everything was kicking off yesterday. We get to a point where there aren't many people left in FaZe. ZooMaa is one of them, but that might also, who knows, be long for this world as well. So effectively, the last few years have been an absolute mess. FaZe Clan used to be known as, well, super ingrained in youth culture, sniping clan, effectively. They were massive for a long time with OpTic Gaming, but FaZe kind of pushed harder and moved quicker into that streaming kind of domain to an extent, and that's where they've been for the last couple of years. Then a few years ago, guys might remember, they tried to go public. Well, they did go public on the stock exchange through a SPAC merger. That then disintegrated very quickly. You know, they wanted to become this big media giant, media company, whatever. Effectively, I think it was kind of last hurrah, because there was a recognition there that that business model was not really going to work. And even today, the business model is, if it even exists, is particularly questionable. XQC was even talking the other day that, you know, FaZe Clan were not long for this world because of the relationships between their members and the actual organisation. Effectively, FaZe Clan, and this is true for many organisations today, becomes basically a talent agency, right? That's effectively what they are. These players sign for FaZe, they form part of that kind of FaZe brand, which used to have probably more value than it does today. That can get sold to sponsors, they can do events alongside those, they can sell merchandise and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, they are, you know, the players are playing for them, the streamers are playing for them, and in exchange, they will make them as part of these sponsorship deals and arrangements and bring them opportunities and stuff like that. And in exchange, FaZe Clan will take a cut of that, right? That's kind of how this relationship has worked. But supposedly in recent months, those members wouldn't have contracts, or they wouldn't necessarily have equity to feel like there's any reason for them to stay with FaZe rather than go somewhere else. And especially given the FaZe brand probably doesn't have the same value and cultural importance that it used to, this type of stuff was probably quite inevitable. Some of the streamers think, well, you know, do I really need FaZe? Could I go my own way? This type of stuff. Now, Banks, of course, has always been and will continue to be a key feature of FaZe. He was, of course, founding member, then he was out of there, then he was back in recently. I think he said on stream the other day that it cost him like $1 million to try and get FaZe Clan back and revive it in a way, but just feel like that was never really going to work. But it was on a downhill trajectory, I think, the whole situation at FaZe Clan for some time. The difference with OpTic to an extent, because, of course, there's still parallels there to this day, OpTic are not as expansive as they used to be. They used to have teams in loads of different esports, and there's always a lot of talk about that. But the thing is with OpTic, what they do very well, right? In Call of Duty, when it comes to content and podcast and having all that as part of a team and running the events locally, look, could OpTic be bigger like they used to be in a way? You know, hopefully they'll get there over the coming years. I'd like to see OpTic, you know, come back to Counter-Strike or something like that, given that, you know, Halo's coming to an end and all of this. But what OpTic do, they do very well, and they've maintained a large fan base as a result. FaZe, to me, always felt very much fractured over the last few years, and it wasn't particularly clear what their identity was and should be. Banks, of course, had a vision for that. He came back in not long ago, but then 4 months ago, he said, I left 4 months ago and have moved on with my life. Unfortunate to see. So, as a result, Banks sold some of his ownership, right, to the new owners, whoever they potentially are. Banks did come out with an assessment here and pretty much said that, look, all the creators, they had free housing, they had filmers and staff, they had all the FaZe channels. I wasn't taking any of their income and all this stuff. All of these guys, their money and their platforms skyrocketed after meeting me, but somehow I'm the bad guy. So, Banks is defending himself from the fact that people are associating him with the decline. Look, whatever you guys think about that, if you're going to give players all of this stuff, of course, their channels are going to blow up, their content's going to blow up, they're going to become more prominent. So, then do they need these things anymore, right? That's a question about the business model here, is that, well, some of these guys probably think, okay, well, if FaZe are now going to start charging me for being part of the organization, then maybe that's not so required. So this has ended the drama. Banks also talked about the fact that loads of the FaZe guys have been view-botting. Everyone who knows ball knew that this was happening for a long time, to be honest. But the fact that he's made them like 20 million bucks because they're botting their streams, and then sponsors are paying or advertisers are paying because they think they're actually getting X amount of viewers, or they're actually getting X divided by 5 amount of viewers or whatever. We know that this has been a big problem for some time, but it's just another, let's say, level of the house of cards that has led us to where we are today. Now, it looks like this guy, Mack, co-founder, president of DraftKings, and also now majority owner of FaZe, because there was this big rumor emerging that effectively FaZe were now saying, all right, we're going to charge our members to be part of the organization. You've got to pay us 20% of your earnings. That comes back to us. And, well, that didn't go down especially well. As I say, in this kind of talent agency relationship, that will be true for sponsor deals and stuff like that. But, and look, at the end of the day, if you're trying to make FaZe a profitable business, this might be something which is effectively necessary, but it's just the way things have been over the last few years. Why would that, and also given that FaZe are not as strong as they used to be, why would creators be on board with this, right? Effectively, they wouldn't, and as a result, we are seeing some of the repercussions. So, FaZe is, as of today, only following 6 accounts. It's Swag, ZooMaa, we'll get to him in a second, FaZe Rug, Your Rage, Apex, and Kaysan. That's it. Like, not even, people were talking about Scope, people were talking about Jev, who, I don't know if Jev's actually said anything on it, but he's not followed by FaZe Clan anymore. Still feels like he's part of FaZe, but yeah, I don't know if that's going to last for too much longer. So they've unfollowed loads of accounts, and of course, very notably, Adapt is gone. Adapt has been huge creator for FaZe. He kind of had 2 different career arcs, really, when he was particularly prevalent in the mind of the community. But yeah, he's been with FaZe for pretty much that entire time period. His stream has blown up recently this year. And as he says, 14 years, over half of my life. I'd be lying if I said this didn't hurt. But it had to be done. Thanks to everyone who's been a part of the journey. The best is yet to come. 140,000 likes on this, 10 million views. So a big loss, right? But look, if FaZe are going to go to Adapt after what's, he's blown up his content this year and is saying, okay, we've got to, you're going to have to pay us 20% of that. He's going to be like, well, that doesn't really make all that much sense. So last night, FaZe were just cooked, right? Everyone's leaving FaZe. The whole timeline were tweeting even if they weren't part of FaZe, right? Because it just became a joke in the scene. People were like, oh, I left FaZe, I've left FaZe, I've left FaZe. Tons of tweets like this, just to further exemplify, really, the downfall of this organization. So, rumor is lots of the organization, lots of the members are just going to quit and they're going to make their own org, right? Because look, if the value of having this kind of organization around the members is because they can sell merchandise together and create like an organization of the creators, we've seen it before with like OTK or whatever it was, that type of idea, maybe it's worthwhile just doing it themselves. So clearly the guys that are left are not going to be especially happy with this, right? Kaysan says broken heart emoji, and that's when the talk then shifts, especially from a competitive Call of Duty perspective, to what about ZooMaa, right? Because ZooMaa kind of says the same thing, all my friends are gone, and look, ZooMaa's still part of FaZe, but who knows for how much longer, right, in this scenario, because if all the big guys are leaving, then FaZe you know, effectively they cease to exist, right? And also there would be not much purpose being a part of it, you'd imagine, still in that type of scenario. So, look, we don't know what happens next. I don't expect ZooMaa to leave FaZe imminently. He's been a key feature over there, and also for Kaysen, right, who came in with some ownership and has done great things for the scene. It's nice to see him still there, but again, you do wonder how long this would potentially last for. ZooMaa was on stream looking pretty sad, the poor guy, you know, reacting to Adapt leaving. He was also giving his own perspective on, you know, all the drama that was happening, like you can see in his face here. And he was basically just thanking his community, the Zoo Mafia, because, you know, they'll be with him, whatever. But yeah, it's a difficult chapter right now, and potentially it's one that's coming to a close. Octane then, I'll share this clip for you guys in a second, comes through and says, Tommy, right? Like, welcome to Thieves. Because if everyone's going to leave FaZe, ZooMaa needs to find a new home, potentially as a creator, who knows? Maybe not immediately, but possible at some point. You know, let's not forget, of course, that ZooMaa was part of New York Subliners as a player. Then for that one Cold War year, he was creator for New York, right? And that was effectively, the flank was a Subliners branded show and all this. Of course, nowadays it's a different story after he joined FaZe following that year. Maybe that chapter's going to be coming to a close. So I will share this clip and then we'll talk a little bit about what it means for the CoD team.
Signed with the FaZe Esports side just because it felt more like home to me, like the Esports side. Is Sam calling me? Yo, Sam, I'm live. What's good?
I want to see if you announced the LAT thing yet.
Yo, he's tripping, bro. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, Jack. You know what I mean? I don't know what he's on about. That he's just spewing right now. He's just fucking. Don't listen to Sam, bro. Don't listen to Sam. Yeah, Sam doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. You know, as far as I'm concerned, we're getting aches to FaZe. It's FaZe Slayer, chat. You know what I mean?
So the Call of Duty team FaZe Vegas is still, as far as we are aware, owned by Atlanta Esports Ventures. So Atlanta Esports Ventures, totally different entity than FaZe Clan. They were running the Atlanta FaZe Call of Duty team out of Atlanta, Georgia for some time. They were paying, we think, I don't know what the number was, $20K a month or something like that to FaZe Clan to effectively license out the FaZe branding so they could use it on their team. That is the potential change. Now, they've moved to Vegas because they think it's just a better spot, better opportunity. It's still run, I think, by the Atlanta organization in general, but things have changed quite substantially over there with the changes this most recent season. And if FaZe no longer exists, then there is no, like, maybe if the FaZe brand isn't what it was, and doesn't have any meaning or any benefits or whatever, like, you know, what's going to happen to FaZe fans if all of the creators leave? Will they still be buying merchandise and all this? So you've got to wonder whether for Atlanta Esports Ventures, does it make sense anymore to keep paying this money to FaZe Clan when there's maybe not the value there anymore? So could that team rebrand or something? That's kind of the question. It's not necessarily a thing of, oh, is Simp gonna leave FaZe? It's not quite like that because he's not signed to FaZe, right? And we see FaZe Clan don't follow any of their Call of Duty players on the FaZe Vegas team. But it's more like the branding of the Vegas spot could change so that those guys are no longer FaZe players. That's a possibility in the near future. Again, would it affect those players in that team massively in terms of the way that it's run? Possibly not, because it's not FaZe Clan running the show over there, but there is still the branding element, which is nonetheless very important to the success of that team being FaZe, right? Like OpTic versus FaZe. It's a huge thing for CoD, and it has been over the last, well, a couple of decades, really, since these organizations are around. So I think that's the concern. Not necessarily that Simp and Drazah and those guys are going to lose their jobs or whatever, but if Atlanta Esports Ventures feel like the relationship with FaZe Clan no longer makes sense, whatever the terms of that relationship are, then changes will be made and we may no longer have a FaZe team in CoD. I think that is, you know, we kind of don't already, but we have a FaZe branded team in CoD. That may disappear. Now, the only one who's really commented on this at all is Drazah. People are kind of saying, oh, lads, you know, do you want to address the elephant in the room? But I'm not sure that they really know much or can do much about it. Drazah did reply to Adapt's tweet here saying just beast. So, you know, there was at least some feeling there from Drazah that, yeah, that's kind of tough, right? For the organization to lose somebody like Adapt. So, yes, very much into your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.